No, I was saying, it looks like you got the NCAA hoodie from that was what 3 years ago. I forgot.
So it was the year I went, so 2024, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah,
What's going on, everybody? Carolina Combat back today. Today we're here with two-time All-American Kai Orine. Kai, thanks for coming on the show.
yeah, no, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so kind of, just going into your new ventures, kind of how did this new Little Rock position come about and what made it the right fit for you?
Yeah, I'll be honest, it kind of fell in my lap. I finished up my career at NC State, and I didn't really know what direction I was going to go in. I had started a 2 year master's, but I honestly, I didn't care at all to really finish that, and it wasn't like it was important to my field because I kind of decided at that point that I was going to move in the coaching direction. But I started that really just to finish wrestling. But I was season was over, career was over, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. But my younger brother, he had kind of entered he was at NC State, but he entered the transfer portal at that point. So he entered, and then as he was getting calls too, people started calling me and asking me kind of what direction I was heading in and where I was going. But yeah, Neil Erishman, he got my number, got a hold of me, and he asked me, he wanted me to come out, take a visit, see what Little Rock has to offer, and kind of all that. And I came out, I took the visit, I got to know him a little bit, him and his family, and the coaches as well, and it took me a little bit. I was kind of torn on the decision. For me, it came down to either a coaching role here at Little Rock or a coaching role at Bellarmine University. So, but I chose Little Rock, and it was it was the right choice for sure. Since I've been here, I've only liked it more and more every day, and it's been a very rewarding experience with a great new perspective.
Yeah, speaking on your brother, you guys are going to reunite at Little Rock. So what's it kind of like to still be sort of alongside him? Kind of in a different role, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. I was he kind of came in last year, and I was like I got to get kind of look out for him and be there for him and everything. But it's a little bit different, especially when I was still competing and on the team, and I had to be selfish for my own sake at some points. But now that I am just holistically a coach and everything, it'll be a little bit different because I really will be able to just pour into him and make sure that he is everything he needs, and I get to be completely selfless in that kind of aspect too. So, and I mean, it's my younger brother, right? It's family, so it's I take family. I take a lot of pride in family and being the oldest brother. So, I just there isn't anything I won't do for my brothers. So.
Yeah, with your new role, what's it going to entail, like your day-to-day operations?
Right now I am just in the coaching role. I kind of told Neil that down the line I'm sure I'm gonna get that itch to compete again and everything like that. But I got shoulder surgery, after my career was over and everything, so I'm still recovering from that. 6 years of college wrestling is not good for your body, and my shoulder was pretty much just holding on by the muscles at that point. So I had to go in, get that repaired, and kind of come, basically just rehab from that. But I want to get back on the mat as soon as possible. Being a coach and just kind of seeing guys, competing and wanting to get in and get my hands on them as well. It's just kind of it's hard to just kind of sit back and watch, right? So, um, yeah, when I was done with my college career, I was kind of like, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna wait to compete, but then kind of being able to sitting out right now and having to watch, like the CWA card go by, the claw draft go by, all these cool opportunities to kind of wrestle under unique circumstances and then not being able to kind of partake in it it kind of stings, right? So, as soon as I'm ready to get back in, I'm gonna hop back in. I think I'm looking forward to those new kind of niche opportunities. I'm still gonna train for like I guess the world circuit and stuff like that, and hopefully be able to travel around the world and wrestle. But um, we're just gonna have to wait and see for all that, right? We're gonna have to see kind of where I'm towing the line at. But being able to get out into those new, more unique opportunities, those I think I'm looking forward to those a little bit more.
Yeah, speaking on some of these, cool new opportunities, is there an opponent you maybe haven't faced that you would kind of have in mind to potentially wrestle against?
I mean, I think there's some older guys that are still competing that I would love, to kind of toe the line with. I always want to I always get my losses back. So anybody that I might have lost to in college that I never got to avenge, I would love to get those back. And then I just there's a lot of guys at my weights that I never saw either. So a lot of guys that I consider friends and everything too. So I mean, and I always love a new matchup, and I mean, I'm ready to compete anytime, anywhere. But I can't say specifically any one person right now. I guess.
Yeah, being around, the new Little Rock staff, have you been able to learn anything, or what has it kind of just been like being around the staff?
Yeah, it was I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning a lot in terms of leadership and just how to interact with your guys now, your college guys. Because for me it's a little weird because a year ago I was on a team with I'm in a team and I am a college
Right.
wrestler still, but now trying to kind of move into that coaching role where you have to kind of be a little bit more mature, kind of toe the line and where you're where between being their friend and also being their coach, right? So, I kind of call it like Neil's bad cop, and I got to play. I'm kind of playing good cop still, right? But, um, yeah, no, I mean, just I'm learning a lot as far as like how to manage, being in the office and doing the busy work and stuff like that. Wrestling, I feel like high level wrestling is pretty universal at this point. So a lot of stuff is just, kind of asking, wait, what do you think about this? And it's just, yeah, no, that's how I would do it. I agree there. Maybe I do a couple little things different here, different there, but I've been able to share a lot of stuff. I've been able to learn a lot of stuff just technique wise, but more so, I think the most I've learned is just the new perspective and as in terms of like leadership wise and kind of how Neil interacts with his kids and just kind of just that whole new perspective and everything.
Yeah, as you said, you are pretty fresh out of the college scene. Do you think, kind of your youth kind of helps you, with recruiting? Because you kind of understand more kind of how recruiting is rather than, how it may have been
Mhm.
like 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think being a young guy who just came off his college career and having a pretty extravagant reputation, I guess. Yeah, it does help. These young kids they kind of they're growing up a little bit different where kind of following those bigger personalities in wrestling and turns out I had a pretty big one in my college career. So whenever I finally being able to get a hold of these kids, it's kind of funny to hear like, hey, first thing they want to say is, oh, I was a huge fan of you, I loved your celebration, stuff like that. That's being able to kind of have that influence and that young so that young impact on these kids. It's kind of yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's also very, very endearing as well. So
For you as a coach now, the new roster limit is starting to come into play. How do you navigate that with, having to limit your roster size at the D1 level?
yeah, it's I don't know, I guess I haven't had to run it too much experience with that, but it's at the same time, it is kind of it's it's good because it's going to be able to kind of hone in on the guys that deserve that attention and everything. But at the same time, it is a little devastating just because there are kids out there that just want that opportunity to continue competing and be a part of that team. And some those kids kind of might miss out. But there are still programs that are accepting a bigger roster, and I think there are some workarounds nowadays. Or at least I think there are some workarounds coming too, where you can kind of waive a couple extra roster spots for the guys that kind of need them. So 30. I mean, 30, you have a 10 lineup, right? You have 10 people in a lineup, but I think 30 roster size, it definitely does kind of, limit how much you're able to kind of reach out and, make, it limits the amount of, life-changing differences you can make. It limits the amount of lives you can touch, right? But it's, there's good and bad with it, right? So as is
You
everything.
know, in your eyes, when you're recruiting, what does your ideal recruit look like?
For me, I like a kid that wrestles every position, right? I like a kid that's going to go out and fight till the whistle blows, and he kind of has that honey badger attitude where, he might be down 10 points, but at every point in the match, he's going to believe that he can win. I look for a kid, I look for a kid that's going to wrestle every position. He's going to wrestle. He's going to wrestle till that very millisecond until he gives up the takedown. And at Little Rock, it's really easy to recruit too because every we have 7 states that are considered in state with so how it works at Little Rock is if you're a bordering state of Arkansas, you're considered an in-state kid. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
getting in-state kids now, definitely that's a good thing to look for. Being here in Little Rock, but I mean, that doesn't limit us to those 7, right? We're still looking everywhere outside of the country. We like kids that move forward. We like kids that set the pace, wrestle every position, and we just good character kids as well, right? If you can just if you can, a kid comes from a good, he's got a good heart, good background. He's gonna work his tail off for you. There's you can do a lot with that kid, and you can take that kid, you can take him into deep waters, right? So, but yeah, I just a kid who's tough nose, ready to work his tail off, ready to work for everything he's going to earn. I think those are the kids that you can do anything with. So
Yeah, building into recruits, kind of, presenting the program. How are you presenting the program to the recruits?
I think the thing I like to start off with is this is the fastest growing. This is the fastest growing Division I program in the country right now.
Absolutely.
And as young as we are, it's going to be a staple program in the years to come. And given the environment we have, there's the culture around Little Rock wrestling is building fast, and it's only going to keep building more and more, right? So, given that we are still a young program, and a little at a smaller school, we don't have a football team at our school, right? So the student body, everything, everything is surrounded. Everyone comes around and supports the schools supports the teams at the school, and the culture around wrestling is building quick. So that helps. And then obviously a little bit of NIL money and being able to be ethically compensated for your efforts and for your achievements here. That also helps as well. And we have a very good system here, and we are able to take care of the kids that definitely deserve it, and the kids that are sacrificing for their team and making a name for themselves as well. So
I mean, the facility is amazing, and on top of just they've had conference championships and All-Americans in a short amount of time, so it's definitely, uh, like you said, it's the fastest growing in the nation, 100%.
yeah, and I mean we have two returning All-Americans this year, and one potentially, one really two that are still looking to kind of take over that national champion title too as well, and be Little Rock Wrestling's first national champion. So, we're still hunting for that. We're still hunting for that gold medal and being on top of that podium. But it's with the trajectory that we're going in, it'll come fast.
Going kind of back into your time at NC State, when you were recruited, what kind of, commit there and just kind of what made that the perfect fit for you?
Yeah, it was a while ago, so it's kind of hard
Yeah,
to
yeah,
remember everything exactly. But when I was getting recruited in high school, I knew where I wanted to be, and I wanted to be pretty far away, right? I wanted to kind of get out and experience a new part of the country and kind of create a new home, somewhere for kind of give my family that expectation, or kind of that dream of kind of getting out and going experiencing in a whole new part of the country, right? So I wanted to be kind of far away. I wanted to get out and experience a new lane of life. But I also, at the same time, I kind of had an idea of I had a really good idea of what I wanted to not study academically, but I couldn't,
right.
yeah, right. So I was just like, I definitely can't do anything with numbers. I'm not a science guy or anything like that. So at the end of the day, I kind of narrowed it down to like, well, I'm good at art, and I like design. It's coming up more and more. So let's find a good school where I can wrestle and become, kind of chase my design and art degree. And NC State ended up working out perfectly. They reached out to me, recruited me, and I didn't get I guess I didn't get as many calls as maybe you would expect, but really after I kind of knew, kind of explored and figured out what NC State had to offer, it was like there really wasn't anywhere else I wanted to be at the time, and it worked out great for me. I loved Raleigh, I loved being at NC State and everything, and it just when it came time to kind of get up and leave, the whole time I was there, I never wanted to leave Raleigh, and I was just,
Right.
I was like, this is my new home. That the community, I have a community that supports me. I have pretty much a whole new family out here and everything. And then by the time, the whole time I was there, I never wanted to leave. But then as soon as my career was over, and then I started getting some calls, it was like, all right, I think it might be time to, kind of pack my bags and hit the road for a little bit, right? So
Yeah, speaking of Raleigh, how's the transition been? It's a good little ways over there in Arkansas. So how has the
yeah,
transition been moving
uh,
over?
yeah. Besides the 13-hour drive and in a moving truck that and towing a car behind, that part was a little daunting. But the whole process was just I'm very comfortable pretty much everywhere, right? I kind of just live where I'm at, right? And home is where I'll make it. But it was tough leaving Raleigh just because there was I had my so many friends, new family, and just everything there too. My fiance as well. Now she had kind of made her own life there as well, and we had many connections we had there. it was time to just kind of get out and get a fresh start. I had been there 6 years, and it was I as much as I loved it, and I kind of still strive to go back one day and kind of make that my permanent home. I knew I knew a new fresh perspective and a new fresh just a fresh start was going to be good for me. And Little Rock, honestly, Little Rock reminded me a lot of Missouri, reminded me a little bit more of home, right? So coming back and still being finally being within shooting distance of being home too. It's only a 5 hour drive now instead of 13. That everything there too that really worked out as well. So
Absolutely. Looking back on your career, two-time NCAA All-American, two ACC titles, 2023 ACC Tournament Most Outstanding Wrestler, four-time national qualifier. What was your favorite moment as a Wolfpack wrestler?
yeah, it's got to be my all time just favorite moment was probably the ACC finals when it was in Reynolds. Um, I think that moment is as sweet as it was because I was able to go on and All American and have a really successful career. But looking back on it, being in a home gym, having as big of making it as big of a moment as it was, having it as big of a finish as it was too, and then just having your home crowd there and being in a packed house in your home gym and having it as big of a moment as it was, I can't top that. I'll always have my best accolades will always be, me being able to All American. But that moment in my home gym and that just there's a level of sentiment that just you can't really top whenever you're out. It's just having that many people there support you and you're like in your own home gym is just it was incredible.
The overtime match was crazy.
Yeah, no, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
one of those moments you just I don't know if I'll ever get something like that again.
Yeah, looking, your ACC rival San Latono, what was it kind of like
Yeah.
having probably, I mean, the most talked about rival, in the conference you guys, I mean, wrestled, All-American matches,
Yeah.
conference matches. I guess what did that kind of do for your career and what was it kind of just like navigating through that rivalry through the years?
Yeah, that it keeps you sharp, having a good rivalry like that and you having a guy is gonna be a nail biter match every time. You guys are gonna grind gears the whole way, right? It keeps you sharp. You have to stay on top. You have to continue to try to get better. And it's just I knew he was coming for me, and I definitely didn't want to give him any ground, right? So whether whether or not we hated each other most of the time, I definitely don't have any ill will towards him anymore. He had a pretty good career too as well, but I'm as much as chippy as it got at some points, whatnot. But I think it definitely made us better. It made both of us better, and it definitely was good for the sport as well, right? Gave the fans something to look forward to, and it gave us something to definitely try to get better for as well.
Yeah, speaking on those, high pressure, high intensity matches, how do you prepare yourself mentally, to get, zoned in for those matches?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just no matter the magnitude of the matches, just don't make it bigger than try not to make it bigger than it is, right? It's a wrestling match at the end of the day, whether it's in front of thousands of people or it's just a match in the room. Um, you can't just try to not make it bigger than it is, right? So I try to keep my routines and my rituals the same before every match. So that way I kind of condition myself to whether doesn't matter what match I'm going into, I'm doing the same things before. I'm trying to prepare the same way. That kind of breaks me into that mindset of every match is the same or something. But I can't say that keeps me from being nervous. I mean people are like, oh, it's hard being nervous, and I'm just as nervous probably as anybody else going into every match,
Right.
right? I think if you're not nervous, something's wrong. You're not ready. So being nervous before every match kind of is what that's how I knew I was really ready, right? But as soon as that whistle blows, you tell the line, the whistle blows. That's everything turns off, right? The nerves go away. I'm trying not to think too much in the match, and I'm just letting my body do my wrestling, and I'm really letting I'm letting my preparation take over really. So I guys ask me kind of all the time, like, how do you prepare for your matches? And I just, or how, kind of what's your mindset going into the match? What are you thinking out there? And I'm like, I'm trying not to think of anything at all, right? If I'm out there thinking too much about what I'm doing, I'm not moving, I'm not reacting the way I should be. So I try to prepare more and think less while I'm out there. But yeah, I think that's as nervous as I am going into it. As soon as that whistle blows, it goes away. Like blank mind. and I'm just going out there and letting my body do its thing, I guess.
Yeah, going back to your first All-American finish. I mean, I'm sure both were special, but just how special was that first time?
Yeah, I just it's like people say like it's what you dream of your whole life, but it took me a while to even really realize that that was a realistic dream to have, right? It took me a while to even believe that I could be that good and put myself in that position. So after I got to that point, then it was like, all right, how much am I willing to sacrifice to achieve this? And I was at that point, I was cutting a lot of weight. I was doing as many all the extra things that I could. My diet was toned in, so it was like after you kind of make every sacrifice possible to achieve it, then it's like once it happens, and it's like, wow, all right, it was finally all worth it. But then that feeling kind of goes away pretty fast because then you realize, oh crap, well I got another match here, so
Right.
let's just take this as far as we can. And I think the honestly I think the one fault I had in my career was not believing that I could do it faster, right? Because it took me a while to believe that I could be an All American, and then
Absolutely.
it really took me up until this last year to believe that I could win a national title, right? And that's kind of part of what the sacrifices you make, dropping back down in the weight class, going down, and then really chasing after it. Like it took me a while to believe that I could do those things, right? And I think the one fault I had was believing that I could do it sooner, right? And I think that's really the only place I came up short in my career. I mean, there's certain things here and there, shoulda, coulda, woulda, or done things sooner, right? But at the end of the day, I get to walk away saying that I sacrificed probably as much as I could, and I truly went for it, and I believed in my coaches, and I believed I went into it with as much as righteous as I could, and I gave it my all, and it just didn't really work out for me in the end, especially my last year. But I as a coach now, I especially I don't want to be I don't want to be ask anything of my kids or or any of my wrestlers. I don't want to ask them of anything that I wasn't able to do, and or that I'm not
Absolutely.
able to do as well. So if I've got to ask a kid to cut down a weight class, or if I've got to ask them kind of work out till 2 a.m. to get that weight off, right, I got to be able to say I have to be able to say that I did those things, and I don't want to leave any of that on the table, and I definitely don't want to be a hypocrite. So
Yeah, what kind of impact did Coach Pop and staff have over you over your time at NC State?
yeah, I mean, I was loyal. I was loyal, and I was willing to sacrifice anything that I could to to do this. And I took their word for I took their leadership as as my best input, right? So anything they asked of me, I was willing to do. And the direction that they believed I should go in, that was kind of the direction that I should have took. And I mean, looking back on it, you can say like shoulda, coulda, woulda, did that, should have stayed here, should have went down, do whatever. But I mean, I believed in my coaches. I was as loyal as I could have been, and I was ready to sacrifice everything. So and I had a great career. I maybe it could have been better. Maybe maybe it would have been worse. But I mean, again, at the end of the day, I feel like I was doing everything right, and I did everything that I could. So
Yeah, what's one thing you'd like to bring to Little Rock just beyond wrestling?
passion, just passion. I want to as much as passionate as I am about my matches. I'm ready to be just as passionate about every single one of my kids' matches. Right? If even though I'm in the corner, I'm ready to be in the match. I'm ready to be in the match with them as much as possible. So I think just passion and being ready to sacrifice for my guys the way whenever I need them to as well. So just ready to be there and stay being in the fight, even though I'm not the one fighting out there. Right? So.
Where do you see the program in the next couple of years?
Like it's growing fast. I mean, if I mean, we're already cracking into the top 20. So if within when we're only 6 years old and we're already cracked into the top 20, so in the next 5, I'm expecting us to be a top 10 team, and I mean, if even sooner than that. So
For any younger athletes or anyone that may look up to you, what would be your message to them?
just keep putting yourself in good positions, right? Put yourself in good positions, and don't get caught up in the expectations, right? Believe you can win, but don't get caught up feeling the expectations of winning, right? Believe that you can win, but don't think that the expectations of others is what is why you should win, right? Work your ass off, be a good person, have good character, do the right things, be righteous, and you'll find yourself in a very good spot, right? It's hard to kind of know and to have the expectation to be like, oh, I'm going to be a national champ when I'm older, all this and whatever. But that's a long ways away. So if you just keep putting yourself in the best position, keep doing the little things right, and just keep being a righteous person, doing the righteous thing, then you'll be in a good spot whenever it's said and done.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I I would hope it's something doing something similar to now. I hope I'm a little bit more mature as my position, as my role as a coach, and I'm able to be, a little bit more advanced in that aspect. But I've wrestled my whole life pretty much, and I didn't know if wrestling was going to be the thing that I would do for the rest of my life. But once it was over, and I was like, all right, my college career is over. It was like I can't walk away from this at all yet. And it was just the older I got in college, the more I realized it's just I want to be able to change kids' lives. I want to be able to do for them what I was able to kind of take my life the direction I was able to take my life. So just I want to continue to change people's lives. I want to be a positive impact on people and on young kids and on kids and their families. So and yeah, wrestling is probably the best way I can do that and being able to change kids' lives through wrestling. But I'm sure down the line, I want to be able to keep doing
How did you come up with your celebration? The
that.
tongue and all that stuff.
Yeah. Uh, I've always kind of stuck my tongue out, at random moments, especially in celebrations, but I never had, the intensity of kind of the way I started doing it. My family heritage, has a little bit of Hawaiian descent. My dad's family is from Hawaii and they, Hawaiian Filipino, but the part of the Hawaiian and Polynesian culture is to do the haka, and it's kind of that expression and that very intense, kind of screaming and looking at you and doing the kind of freaky faces, right? So I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from that as well. And then once I started doing it, he definitely got a lot more reactions, and people were like, "What the hell is he doing?" And then I had fans coming up to you like, "What are you doing?" And then little kids are coming up to you and doing it and greeting you with it. You got people you don't even know doing it in public too. And then I was like, "Yeah, I made a good move there." So it's a little bit of everything, just a little bit of personality, kind of coming out of my shell more and more, but then a little bit of my, background and a little bit of my family heritage as well. So obviously, I don't look the part very much. I've got my mom's complexion, and I definitely don't like to claim that I'm a Hawaiian because I grew up in Missouri, but my dad's side of the family, grew up with Hawaiian values and Hawaiian family, but yeah, it's just it's a small part in like a kind of a niche part of my life, but it's something that I am very proud of, and I think Hawaiian people and the Hawaiian culture are some of the coolest people in the world, right? So, um, yeah, and I just being able to kind of use that in my own expression was it was cool, and to get the reactions out of the crowd and the people and the people coming up to me and they're like little kids loving it as much as they do, that was definitely awesome, very 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 endearing.
Yeah, wrapping up, do you have any message to any of your fans and supporters, whether it's from Wolfpack or, your new journey at Arkansas?
Yeah, I just grateful for people taking a chance on me, taking a likeness to me. Um, this, you asked me where I'm going to be when I was a kid. This is definitely not the answer I was going to give you, but I mean, I'm very very happy. I'm very content with where my position, the direction I'm going in, and kind of just the people I have around me now. Got a great woman, got a great fiance. She has a great family who supports me just as much as my own too. So it's everything in my life right now is very good, and it's the people that I've kind of been able to see, meet and be, have support me along the way that have been able to make it happen. So, thank you.
Yeah. Kai, well, it was an honor to have you on. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.